Hello everyone, welcome back to Devonite's FPL Game Week 11 preview. So let's get going. Looking at Crystal Palace Tottenham. Crystal Palace are still without Olise and Eze, but the resourceful Roy Hodgson still found a way to score against Spurs, who have been miserly at the back. Looking at the upcoming fixtures, you may want to consider Ayew, but with 54 points already at a cost of just 5, Joachim Anderson in defense is my pick for the weeks ahead. Spurs have still got a few weeks ahead. Maybe a caution on the Aston Villa game coming up. Son is still leading from the front, and Madison is always there with some points. Destiny Udogie is still nursing a muscle injury, and I don't think Spurs will rush him back. But on the plus side, Rodrigo Betancourt is back for the fans of the Uruguayan. Looking at Chelsea-Brentford, Chelsea take a loss at home against a resurgent Brentford. This is arguably the easiest match for the next 6 weeks for Chelsea, except for Manchester United probably. Chilwell is still absent and Reece James is still not back in the squad. They can score, but no one that I would call out currently, not even Sterling, who has accumulated 49 points but only twice has scored more than 3 in 10 weeks. Brentford are going to challenge West Ham next week, with the Hammers taking back-to-back losses. Mbeumo is in double figures in back-to-back weeks, so he's worth a look for sure. But Liverpool and Arsenal both in pretty ruthless form ahead, so I wouldn't stack up on Brentford just yet. Looking at Arsenal-Sheffield, Arsenal gave a masterclass on how title contenders handle newly promoted clubs. 5 goals by Sheffield and a hat-trick, his first for Eddie Nketiah. Saka still among the points and Odegaard was just rested. There is no injury that I know of. I expect him to feature against Newcastle. What I don't expect is another 5 goals. Thomas Partey and Gabriel Jesus now on the short-term injury list for Arsenal. Sheffield United are still one to avoid. Some winnable games ahead, but all their opponents are in better form with more dominant players at this point in time. Looking at Bournemouth-Burnley, Bournemouth are in trouble. They've just lost their first choice keeper until the 25th of November, and that should be good news for City and Newcastle. I wouldn't recommend anyone for these 2 weeks. Burnley are putting up a good fight, but although on paper they may have winnable games, all 3 upcoming opponents are in good form, so I would avoid at this moment in time. Looking at Wolves and Newcastle, Wolves have done extremely well this weekend, holding Newcastle at the Molineux with Hee-Chan and Neto featuring. Neto picked up a nasty injury though and may miss the Sheffield United game. You may still want to take a chance on him and Hee-Chan, as well as Cunha up front and Jose Sa as a rock at the back. Newcastle would have been disappointed with the result, especially ahead of a tough week against Arsenal and Chelsea coming up in a few weeks. Trippier bombed this week. You may want to use that money elsewhere in the next 3 weeks. Along with Callum Wilson, who had a good week, there are many routes to points with Newcastle, so I'm hesitant to bank on anyone. In West Ham Everton, it was a surprise loss at home for the Hammers, and with the resurgent Brentford ahead, maybe stall 1 more week before bringing in some players to capitalize on the games against Forest and Burnley. Lucas Paqueta is suspended for next week, so it's an uphill battle. Everton getting the points, and all credit to them. Big points for Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Pickford. Doucouré is still one to watch. They have a tough 3 weeks ahead, and I'm not backing them against Brighton, Crystal Palace and United. Tarkowski has been a casual star, picking up a clean sheet here and there, and 28 points in the last 5 game weeks, half of those distributed over the last 4 weeks, so it's a fairly good call for 4.4. Aston Villa pressed their advantage, making the most of 3 favourable game weeks, with Diaby coming back full force, and only Ollie Watkins not paying back the fate that manages Burnley. Unlucky for Ammi Martinez to lose all his points with that own goal. No new injury concerns, so I would encourage managers to pull in these players for the next 2 weeks. Douglas Luiz is informed, Diaby is kicking back in, Ollie Watkins will still get points, I feel. John McGinn and Leon Bailey are also featuring regularly enough. There is enough in the squad to suit your budget and position. As for Luton, my advice is to avoid here. Not really any proven point scorers coming up in the following weeks. Brighton were unlucky to draw against Fulham, but did enough to convince me that they can get max points in the next 3 weeks. Estupinan could be back after 1 more week, and you can still look at Gross, Mitoma and Evan Ferguson as routes to points at fairly good value. Fulham are doing enough to get some points this season, and Manchester United are vulnerable enough to give them something. Their leading scorers, Dikotova, Reed, Andres Pereira, and João Palhinha, are just accumulating points over 10 weeks, none scoring more than 3 points more than 3 times, so choose with caution. Looking at Liverpool Forest, an easy win is what many called it for Liverpool. It was a clear win, under no threat. Salah is screaming ahead with 83 points this season and only failing to score at least 5 points once this season. Get him. Still 2 weeks to capitalize until City come to town. Nunez is also starting to show some form, scoring more than 3 points in 4 of the last 5 weeks and scoring in Europe, and he's playing more than 60 minutes in 3 of those games. Robertson is still out injured, and Luis Diaz has some serious issues with his parents being kidnapped in Colombia and is unlikely to feature in the short term. Forest are in for a rough run. Elanga seems to have overcome his knock, and Awani is back, but Villa, West Ham, and Brighton are not pushovers at all. No recommendations here unless you are desperate for a forward, then would ask you to go with Awani. Finally, if Liverpool winning 3-0 at Forest was easy, then what can we say here? City came ready to play and Haaland saved his best performance for the big stage. I said last week that I would reserve judgment until the derby was done. United have a good run on paper ahead, but their on-the-field form and off-the-field drama is terrible. Their top 3 players have only scored more than 3 points 3 times in this season. It's a sad fact, but I'm not recommending anyone from here to the managers. They are all overpriced in the fantasy league and in reality. Avoid is my opinion. There's just not enough in returns. From City, they have no injury concerns except for De Bruyne, and even though they are third on the table currently, they are within touching distance. Chelsea and Liverpool in the near future may change that. Picks would be Alvarez and Haaland, who have scored more than 3 points on 6 and 7 occasions respectively. Haaland is only second to Salah in points this season. So overall, looking at the fixture rating, let's look at for the next 3 weeks: Aston Villa, Brighton, Crystal Palace, Manchester United if you're a true fan, possibly Wolves having some good games coming up ahead, and West Ham after getting through Brentford. Definitely looking to be cautious with Brentford, who after West Ham have Liverpool and Arsenal visiting, Chelsea who have Spurs, City and Newcastle in 3 weeks. I would avoid like the plague. Bournemouth are always going to have tough games, but City and Newcastle coming up are really heavy, and Luton have Liverpool and Manchester United before going to Crystal Palace. So I would definitely avoid looking at anyone from those teams and stack up looking at the ones that have more friendly fixtures. So that is it for the Game Week 11 preview. Good luck with making your changes and getting the right team in, as well as making the right captain selection. So that's it for this video. Like, comment, please subscribe. Let me know what you think and what else you would like to see. But until then, that's it for now.